This week I talk about how I make money with photography, the future of this channel, and some upcoming photography related projects. This is in celebration of me hitting 50K, which happened just yesterday as of when I'm recording this. So big thank you to everybody who watches these videos. It means a ton. And grab a drink because this is probably going to be a longer episode. I got a ton of great questions on Instagram and I'm going to answer some of them today. A good one to start with is how did you get started taking photos by Kyle the Fisherman. So I started off when I was living in London as a videographer. I just started making actually a couple YouTube videos totally unrelated to photography, but I started as a videographer making little fashion videos, and I worked for a fashion media company when I lived there. And then about 3 years ago when I moved to New York, I took a trip to Japan with some of my friends and I ended up buying a 35mm camera there. And that's how I started taking photos. That's how I transitioned from video to photo. So it was cool knowing like all the basics like aperture and shutter speed and all that when I started taking photos, and I had some idea of what I wanted to make. But I guess I've only really been taking photos for like 3 years now. Where and with who would your dream photo shoot be? I've always wanted to photograph Tom Sachs in his studio here in New York. Tom Sachs is like a sculptor and an artist, and I've been a fan of him for like 3-4 years now, way before I moved to New York. And yeah, I think it would just be incredible to photograph him in his studio. What kind of medium format camera would you suggest for someone moving from 35mm? It's actually a super common question that I get all the time, and I would recommend the Mamiya 645, which is the camera that I started shooting medium format on as well. And there's a ton of great options, but I think that's a really good camera because first of all, you get 15 shots per roll, and it's just a nice stepping stone because it's the smallest negative that you can get on medium format. So it's not incredibly expensive when you're starting out, but it is a decent upgrade to 35mm. And that camera feels really good, and they're pretty cheap as well. I remember buying mine for like $250, which isn't too bad for a medium format camera. So yeah, check out the Mamiya 645. There's also an autofocus version, which is pretty expensive, but the manual focus one is amazing. Did you go to photography school? That's actually the reason I moved to New York. I just finished my sophomore year a couple months ago, and I think I'm gonna take a year off to just pursue photography on my own. I felt like I wasn't necessarily learning enough in school for it to be worth it. And I also felt like I was compromising opportunities, spending my time at school making work that I didn't necessarily care as much about. So I'm gonna take a year off and see how it goes. I feel like a photography degree doesn't necessarily get you anywhere, whereas something like an economics degree is totally different. But I definitely learned a lot from school as well, and I'm really grateful for the 2 years that I spent there. How did you go about meeting and working with other creatives when you first started? So right when I moved to New York, I reached out to a couple of my favorite YouTubers who were here. One of them being John Hill, the skateboard YouTuber. He had over 500,000 subscribers when I started working with him, and I sent him an email saying that I'm a videographer. I just moved to New York. I'd love to help out with his videos, and through meeting up with him the first time filming something, I became more of a regular filmer for him. Being able to work alongside him was an incredible way to see how a YouTuber makes YouTube videos, and that's a big part of how I learned to do this right here, which is making YouTube videos. If you're trying to work with somebody who's in a position above you, I would say reach out and try and find any way that you can add value to them as a way of being able to work with them or meet up with them. People like him get a ton of emails, ton of DMs, so make yourself stand out by offering whatever you're able to do to add value to their lives. That's also what I do with photography assisting. I assist a photographer called Ryan Plett quite regularly here. And I reached out to him as well just by being able to be an assistant, and I know studio lighting, so I told him I could set up your studio, I could do your lighting for you, and you can just shoot. And that's how I'm able to work with people like that, I guess. This next question makes sense, but do you live off photography, and how do you make your money and afford New York? I do a lot of photography work, a lot of video editing work that I don't talk about on this channel necessarily, but I make money through doing commercial photography as well, through doing YouTube now as a source of income for me as well. Things like selling prints, zines. Assisting other photographers is a great way to get paid. videography jobs was a great way to get paid. And I still do a lot of freelance video work that I've never talked about online really as a way to make money. The photography jobs where people are generally getting paid are the ones where there's a paid product being photographed. So something like e-commerce photos or serious fashion editorial photos. Those generally pay pretty good money because people are making money off of those photos. When I photograph music artists, rappers, that generally never pays. I almost always lose money spending on things like studio, lighting rentals, film developing. So if you're trying to chase photography jobs that make money, just make sure you find things to photograph where people will make money off of the photos that you're taking, because otherwise you're probably not going to get paid. A big thing is also just doing the jobs that don't pay money but are cool photos for your portfolio so that you can improve your work and get hired. If there's a cool opportunity to photograph somebody interesting, or even just anywhere that I might be able to make an interesting photo for my portfolio, I'll generally always say yes, because I'm just trying to build out my portfolio of work right now. Where did you live before New York? It's kind of complicated. I'm originally from Belgium. I moved to New Jersey when I was 8. I spent 5 or 6 years in New Jersey growing up. And then I moved to London for the next 5 years. And now I'm in New York for the past 3 or so. Make a video about shooting with the Contax G1. I actually broke that camera like a month after I got it. The viewfinder just got smashed while it was in my bag, I think. And I couldn't really compose a photo through it. I did recently pick up a Canon A1 as a 35mm replacement camera. So that should be a fun time to shoot with. What's your next milestone you want to achieve? As a photographer, I definitely want to put out my first book at some point. A photographer's first book is just like a really significant stepping stone, I think, and every photographer I admire has had a really fascinating first book. So it's a pretty special thing to put out there. In the meantime, though, I think I'll definitely do a zine as well before another book or something. I absolutely would not want to rush my first photo book, but that's kind of always something that's in the back of my head as I make more photos. It would definitely be something more narrative based, like that project in New Jersey that I've been shooting, but I'm not sure yet at this point. We'll see how it goes. Somebody said, why do you shoot on film? And that's a pretty open-ended question. I have a lot of things to say about that, but I've had a lot of people telling me recently with the way I edit my film that I should shoot digital because I just edit so much anyway. But I think for me, film, first of all, is much more about the process. I really enjoy how slowly I can work with film. Whereas when I pick up a digital camera, I just fire off as many shots as I like, and it just makes me less intentional. I just learned with the process of film, and that's what I'm comfortable with. So that's what I stick with. It's not necessarily that I hate digital in any way. I just know exactly what I'm going to get when I shoot on film. And also, I still think regardless of my editing, the colors that I get out of film are just way more natural and softer. And it just has really nice textures as well. When you zoom in on the photo, I love the grain. And I think when you look at a digital photo, it looks over sharpened to me. It looks over processed. A film photo just looks natural. And would you ever move back to Jersey? Probably not move back, but I am planning to stay there for an extended period of time soon, just to be able to make more work and focus a little bit more on the project that I'm shooting there. Do you ever see yourself shooting digital the way you shoot film? Which is a good follow-up. I actually totally would buy a digital camera. Really, the only digital camera I own right now is this one that I'm filming on. It's a Sony a6300. But I have thought about buying a digital Fuji recently just because I always rent a digital when I have commercial jobs. So I've thought about getting an X Pro 2 because that seems like a cool camera to also shoot some creative work on. I'm not opposed to digital in any way at all, but regardless, I think the majority of my creative work will always remain on film, at least for the future. I'm not sure. Oh, this one's pretty interesting. Do you have any photo books or favorites by female artists? Absolutely. My favorite photographer right now is Alex Prager. I love her work. She makes super elaborate photos, which basically have the production value of an entire movie, and they're these really elaborately staged photos that are super 80s inspired, and they always are stunning to look at. I saw her show when I was in London last summer, and she's an incredible artist. I'm a big fan of Petra Collins, who does a lot of cool portrait and editorial work right now for Gucci and a ton of different magazines. A lot of people don't know this, but I have a podcast called C41 Podcast. And there's a lot of questions in here asking if that's coming back anytime soon. It definitely will be coming back. I'm just trying to plan it in a way where it's going to have a little bit nicer production value. And ever since I moved into this studio, that's kind of just taken a pause for a minute while I try and figure out a podcasting setup in this studio. But I have a ton of people who I want to have on there in the future for sure. Any tips for getting that flat pastel-y look you have in some of your photos? Definitely shoot your film overexposed so you get a ton of shadow detail. Scan it yourself if you can, because you can really customize the look, and then also just edit it because editing film is okay. And I guess the main thing is just look for nice colors in your photo. It's not necessarily about adding colors to a scene that wasn't already colorful. Would you ever do fashion related content? I literally wear exclusively Carhartt pocket t-shirts. I don't think I would have much to talk about. So no fashion, sorry. Are you putting out any new zines soon? I definitely plan to do a zine that's like a portfolio almost. It'll be contact sheets and the final image, kind of like these books that you see like Magnum contact sheets and Contact High. I really want to do a portrait related zine. I'm already planning it out with the designer of my last zine. His name is Mateus. He's an incredible designer, and that should be pretty fun, but that's definitely a month or more down the road. Are you planning to live in Belgium someday, even just temporarily? I have thought about going there for a while to make some work that I've been sitting on for ages, but nothing in the near future. What made you decide to rent a studio and go YouTube full time? For those people who don't know, I have a small studio space here in Manhattan, which they're referring to. That's a tough question. I decided to go full time with YouTube because it's definitely a dream of mine, and it's just something I want to try and pursue now that I have the opportunity. The moment that kind of presented itself a little bit, I definitely just decided to go for it because I saw the potential in this YouTube channel, and I hope to grow it in the future. And it's also a way that I can just make the photos that I desire for a living without necessarily having to take on commercial jobs like weddings or event stuff anymore, because I was getting pretty tired of doing that kind of stuff. And it kind of made me lose interest in taking photos, even the ones that were for myself. So the moment I saw an opportunity that allowed me to make an income with photography that wasn't necessarily just the commercial stuff, that's what I went for. Are you more attracted by the technical aspects or by the artistic way of making photography? This is a tough question because I definitely started taking photos just because, like a lot of people, I was interested in trying out film. And as I experimented with film, I kind of lost interest in the format itself as my main inspiration for wanting to make pictures. And I like to think that now I just want to make photos. I think that a lot of people who watch YouTube videos get into photography because of cameras, because the majority of photography related content right now on the internet is camera based. It's camera reviews, gear reviews, how do you do this, editing tutorials. And I think that gives people who are starting out or just hobbyists the wrong impression that making photos is just about having the right camera and having the right film and the right gear and the right scanner, when really if all of the content on YouTube was about making artistic photographs, then I think people would have a whole different approach. So definitely for the future of this YouTube channel, I want to talk more about things like finding meaning in your photos, how to develop a personal style, how you can get hired, the business of things, the logistics, getting your work published, making things like zines, and also just videos documenting my own work and me making photos, because that's the kind of content I want to see from other photographers. I wish I could watch behind the scenes videos from my favorite photographers all day long instead of camera reviews. So that's definitely what I want this channel to lean towards more in the future. I'm going to get on to a couple last questions because this video is getting insanely long. If you're still watching, you're amazing. I don't know who would watch all the way through this, but ratio of peanut butter to jelly in peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I don't know. How do you train your photographic eye? There's a couple things you can do. Just look at as much work as possible, whether it's movies, books, go to art galleries. Honestly, this whole YouTube channel in a way is just me and my experiences as a photographer, documenting as I go along. I share things as I learn them, and that's been really fun. I think that's where I'm gonna wrap it. That was really fun. I hope you learned something. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, comment something goofy like editing your film is not okay. Aside from that, you can check out my Instagram. It's at Willem Verb. Big thank you for watching this video and supporting this channel. I upload every Sunday at 11 a.m. and occasionally a little video in between Sundays. That's it for now. Peace.